I don't think we call it Tory sleaze for nothing. I think as far as most people in the country are concerned, earning over 80,000 a year is quite enough. You do not need a second job. And when you look at Geoffrey Cox, who, of course, seemed to spend part of the pandemic in the British Virgin Islands, actually for an enormous amount of money, but taking on the government. But then, at home, he did the classic awful thing of renting out his own home and then charging the taxpayers for rent to pay his rent. And that is sleaze. And it might not
be...
Is it
unique to the Tories,
it might not... I have to say that if you look at what's going on, it is mostly Tory, right? The really
not true. I think that the Cox example, whilst I would not, were I to be an MP, I wouldn't behave the way that he has. It is an outlier and a pretty extreme one. And people talk about sniff tests, and for many people that won't pass the sniff test. But the more general kind of behaviour is not unique to any one party. The reason I think this doesn't get resolved anytime soon is that the leader of the Conservative Party has earned significantly in outside earnings whilst an MP. The leader of the Labour Party has earned significantly from outside earnings whilst an MP, and the leader of the Liberal Democrats has earned significantly from outside earnings.
How much does Keir Starmer earn?
You're kidding. Keir Starmer was a consultant to Mishcon de Reya and made tens of thousands of pounds.
Not tens of thousands, actually 25,000, and then he realised that it was wrong and he stopped it, right? And he hasn't done it since 2017.
What you're talking about is during his time as leader of the opposition, and that's true. But you will remember that he got tied in knots the other day, saying that he wasn't in talks about taking another significant job whilst he was a Member of Parliament. He was in discussions, which is a semantic difference without a distinction without a difference.
Look, he stopped it in 2017. No, we're now in 2021, and it was 25,000. We all know that, and we all know that it's not very much. And actually, I don't think he should.
So your point isn't about the amount. Your point isn't about the behaviour. It's just about the amount.
No, what I'm actually talking about is things like Owen Paterson, who was a consultant for a firm and trying to change government policy.
I see. So what was Keir Starmer a lawyer for, and what was he trying to do?
He wasn't doing it.
You don't know, do you?
He wasn't,
because he hasn't disclosed his clients. So how can you say that Paterson was wrong and Starmer was right?
Because it was for Mishcon de Reya. we know that what he was doing was he was consulting them.
One was legal work. Sorry, Scott. One was legal work that Keir Starmer did some of and then talked about doing more. Mishcon de Reya law firm. But who was the client? Hang on. Let's go. Michelle said...
Who was the client?
One second.
You say you know, so who's the client?
Well, it was a law firm. They don't disclose clients, but...
Oh, I see. That's OK, then.
Yeah, but you've
got to register where you disclose things, right?
Allow me to get back to the point, if I may. Michelle said... Well, I will if you just shut up for 1 second. Michelle said, has this damaged politics, right? The opinion polls, Michelle, are what we go by, right? And it was interesting what the Minister said there. Opinion polling shows Labour now has a 2-point lead over the Conservative Party. And I would say, to be fair to the Conservative Party, if they don't get a grip on this, over time a perception will form, right? Alex is doing his bit here to rally for the Tory cause, but even he must agree it's not been a great couple of weeks, predominantly for the Conservative Party, right?
It hasn't been a good. I don't think Alex is trying to desperately rally for the Tories, and I think that there is a blatant, simple point to be made here. Currently, right now, today, with the Tories in power, yes, the balance of who's been in the wrong is tipped towards the Tories, because people want power and influence. If it was the Labour Party that were in power and the power and their influence sat with them, I suspect you might actually see the balance tipping over there. My point in all of this is, when we call it Tory sleaze and all the rest of it, it's not just the Tories that are doing this. This is a situation where we've got people that have been in power, and you'll all remember the expenses scandal. And I'm furious myself because I can't remember the person's name. You might remember, Alex. There was a lord. There was a Labour lord, and he had to resign because of this whole kind of rent scandal when he was in power. I cannot remember his name, but it was fresh in my mind. It's gone.
Look, for the expenses, was certainly on both sides, and I mean the more colourful ones were the moat cleaner and things like that, which were Tory, but it was certainly on both sides. But what's happened at the moment, and you're absolutely right. I mean, of course you want a Tory, because the Tory can talk to the government, will be listened to by ministers. It is terrible for politics. It is. I mean, most MP, I think all three of us, possibly four of us, would agree. Most members of Parliament are in there because actually they want to make Britain a better place. That's what motivates.
On that we agree.
Pay them more, Michelle. Pay MPs more. What about that?
You'll never pay them enough. I mean, Geoffrey Cox...
150 a year, no second jobs.
Geoffrey Cox wants millions more. Right?
Well, then Geoffrey can go and do the law. What about paying more, though? Paying more, no second jobs. Alex?
There you go. He reckons 150 grand for the MPs. What do you think, Alex?
I would pay MPs significantly more, but whilst we can agree on this panel, it's a very unpopular position in the country.
Yes.
Well, it's like, you know, the head teacher, a man or woman doing an amazing job, right, in a big school. That's what 150k is, right?
The reason we get in this
tangle
in our public conversation, we talk about X, Y, Z are paid more than the Prime Minister, never reflecting on the fact that our Prime Minister is paid too little, which is a position I can take because I'm not an elected politician. If you are, that's something you'll get pilloried for saying.
No, but the thing about Prime Ministers is the minute they stop being Prime Ministers, they earn an absolute fortune.
They don't have to. Gordon Brown doesn't. So there's a position from the left that's in favour of that.
Gordon Brown would not have asked for his money to be put up, and I don't believe
Tony Blair, on the other hand, has earned
Tony Blair
likes
his millions, and actually very quietly, John Major. David Cameron, not so quietly. Bad lobbyist, one has to say, how not to lobby. And even Theresa May is on the circuit doing massive... I mean, once you've been a Prime Minister, and that's apparently, I mean, the way the Conservatives get their Attorney Generals is they go, once you've been Attorney General, you really can charge the earth.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Dominic Grieve was a very successful lawyer before he was Attorney General. And for that matter, actually, so was Geoffrey Cox. So, to my mind, that's not how you get to be Attorney General, whilst, of course, you're right that it may help your earnings afterwards. As I understand it, it hasn't hurt Lord Goldsmith in his earnings at the bar either. But the point is that these people are successful advocates. Keir Starmer is a very good lawyer. And indeed, may I say, in the interest of fairness, I think he'd be a perfectly plausible candidate to be Prime Minister if his party were a bit more electable. He's just somebody who could earn a great deal outside of his current role.
The polls suggest he's getting there, Alex.
Well,